These are 8 players that you need to add on your waiver wire for week 2 of fantasy football redraft leagues. We're going to go through the top 8 guys. This is probably the most important week, I would say, when it comes to waiver wire, whether it's, you have traditional waiver wire, or if you're a grown up, you've advanced to Fab and you can just compete no matter what every week for guys on the waiver wire. And give you some priority ads, because as we know, every single week your money becomes worth less and less. So getting some guys now is very important. All right. So first priority ad, Corey, do you want to start us off here?
Oh, I will start this off because this is a player that talked about, and I'm kicking myself for not grabbing him a little bit more in drafts. That is going to be Huka Nakua, the wide receiver Rams. I'm sure everyone is aware of him after week 1. The man finished with 15 targets, 10 receptions, 119 yards, and was like basically a yard away from scoring a touchdown. He had 39.4% target share from Matthew Stafford. They're in a pass heavy offense. I mean, we saw that they could not run the ball at all. They were not very, or at least Cam Akers can't run the ball. I should rephrase that. Cam Akers cannot run the ball. But in a pass heavy offense, obviously Cooper Kupp went out week 1 or before week 1, and he's on IR for the next 4 weeks. So we weren't really sure who was going to absorb that target share. A lot of us thought maybe Tyler Higbee. Van Jefferson's been in that offense for a couple years now. But there was a lot of hype coming out of training camp for Puka. I'm pretty sure he was like a 6th-round pick in the actual draft. And so, but yeah, I mean, there was a lot of hype coming out. I mean, currently right now, he's only like 5% rostered and across all leagues, which is very low. So he's probably going to be the number 1 target people are going to be looking for. So obviously, if you are in a traditional, this not like the old school way of the snake pickup where, he should be your number 1 pickup, especially regardless of what your receiving options look like. I still think when Cooper Kupp comes back, he's going to be the number 2 there. I think he's going to outperform Tyler Higbee, obviously, in the target share department there. Obviously, if you're in a fab, it's a little bit different. You got to understand, like, you have the money for the entire year, but also week 1 is really when these guys break out and really do kind of show like the type of player that they are going to be for the rest of the year. So you got to really understand. Typically you have $100 budget for this. I mean, honestly, if he's going to be getting, 7+ targets a game, I mean, I think you go, and especially if you're desperate in a 14-man league where there is not a lot of pickups throughout the rest of the year, I think you go pretty hefty on this, and you probably spend maybe a quarter of your budget on him. That way you can ensure yourself with potentially the number 2, pass catching option on a pass heavy team. So Puka, go out and get him.
You say you want to spend heavy, and you're saying only spend 25% of your budget?
I mean, a quarter. I mean, depending on, what you're looking at. I mean, again, you have to think like, okay, so let me go back. So his next game next week is against San Francisco. So it's not the greatest matchup. I mean, obviously Kenny Pickett just threw the ball like 50 times against the 49ers and had little success. I mean, that's Kenny Pickett. We're talking about Stafford, but I mean, he's got good matchups throughout the rest of the year. He's not in a very strong division at all.
Most of his upside comes if the Cooper Kupp injury lingers. If Cooper Kupp comes back healthy, you might, especially if you don't really need wide receiver help, you probably will regret spending a lot on him. But if Cooper Kupp really is banged up and ends up missing a lot, then is when he may be a lot more valuable.
I'm totally in the camp. Like, if you like a guy, go spend $100 on him. Extra draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, if you could play it that way, that's definitely very, very aggressive. But if you really like him, go get him.
Like that target share is what I like.
Yeah, just that's the first 4 weeks, which is the least important part of the season. So it all depends on how you think Cooper Kupp comes back. That really what it comes down to, with Puka. All right, number 2 waiver wire priority. We're going with Kiron Williams here. Everyone thought Cam Akers, was going to be the guy this year. And last year, we heard some rumblings that, Kiron Williams maybe was going to be the guy. And then he gets injured I think like it was like pregame or something. He gets injured and then you don't really hear about him the rest of the year. Healthy this year, he goes out there, plays 65% of the snaps, 74% routes run. Akers only got his carries when the game was kind of out of hand. It was pretty much the Kiron Williams show before then. It's going to be a committee backfield probably still. It's going to be like, I don't know, like a 60-40, 55-45. But we've seen Rams running backs have success, in that offense, especially if, I mean, Stafford looked very good with who he trotted out, with what they trotted out there, and especially if Cooper Kupp comes back, could be a decent offense were enough to sustain an maybe low RB2 or a flex option with Kiron Williams. But if you're needy in that department, you should go out and get Kiron Williams. And also, we know running backs that have had Achilles injuries like Akers just rarely ever get back to form, and they seem to struggle. I mean, Akers looked horrible week 1. I mean, just awful. He had like 22 carries for like 22 yards. It is just not good. So, I would say if you need a running back, I would try to go out and get Kiron Williams here.
Yeah, I'm always in the camp of spending more of your fab budget on a running back, especially if you had a guy like J.K. Dobbins or someone who's done for the year now. It seems like running backs are just a more premium position when it comes to waiver wire pickups. So
Agreed.
Speaking of the J.K. Dobbins injury, our third player here, Justice Hill. You're probably wondering why not Gus Edwards. He's also injury prone. I don't think he's going to last an entire season either. Dobbins is out for a full season, so we know he's completely out of the equation. Justice Hill, I mean, picked up, I think, the same amount of rush yards or rush attempts as Gus Edwards last week, but I'm going Justice Hill here. I think he could be the more pass-heavy back here. We saw Dobbins. He had 3 targets, which, isn't anything to write home about, but we see him slightly featured. And the thing that I found the most interesting out of this game is all offseason, everyone's like, Lamar Jackson, pass heavy offense, Todd Monken's here to stay. Last year, the Ravens had about a 50-50 split in pass to run. The last game, they had a 56% run share. So I thought that was kind of interesting to see where the ball was going. It really hasn't dramatically changed and slightly went the other way. I expect it to even out a little bit, obviously, but it's interesting to see they didn't go like a 7-30 split pass to run, something like that. So I think they're still fully committed to the hardball game of, run the rock. So I think you got to love a Ravens running back in that scenario. And just given the injury history of Gus Edwards as well, Justice Hill seems like the safest pickup here. So,
yeah, I expect Hill to get a lot of the early down work too. Like they're very different running styles. Gus is more kind of a bruiser goal line guy, but I think Hill gets more looks in the season.
And with Todd Monken there, the pass game role is definitely huge.
Yep.
And him taking that role.
Yep.
They were using Justice Hill on the goal line too, which
he was involved before the Dobbins injury.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Going to another running back here. We've got Kenneth Gainwell. He's 22% owned in ESPN leagues right now. Got the Bucks, Commies, and Rams coming up. So a couple of decent but not amazing run defenses. Gainwell had the Philadelphia lead back role completely secured this game. He took 62% of the snaps. He took all of the red zone carries, all of the third down carries, and pretty much all of the reception routes. Penny was a healthy scratch. Swift played, I think, like 8 snaps, like next to nothing. You're going to want to monitor his rib injury going into Thursday night football, but I do think season long wise, he's a good stash to have. He's a featured back in a top tier offense. So a guy that, is in somewhat of a committee. We'll see what they do with Swift and Penny down the road. I do think that both will get games where they are the premium and premier back for a game or two. But I think over the course of the season, Gainwell is a guy who you're going to want on your team. He's a guy you can throw in the flex and feel pretty good with that Eagles run offense and that line that he's running behind.
Yeah, I was so surprised. Penny has a healthy scratch, and then Swift didn't even play. I was sitting on the couch on Sunday, like that meme that's like, what?
I will do a.
I mean, I thought it'd be split a little bit, but my
Yeah, I
gosh,
thought we would see
Gainwell's
a lot
go.
more Swift.
I
For
will
sure.
say that if you had been listening to some of our off-season episodes, you wouldn't have to pick him up on the wire because you would already be on your team.
Facts.
That's true.
All right, Corey.
Yeah, so coming in here at number 5 is going to be another running back. And this one is probably going to be a little bit of a surprise to most of you that we're talking about this player right now. And that's going to be Tyler Algier, or as we call him, Tyler the Alligator. Don't know why we gave him that nickname. It just looks like almost alligator anyways. But
I coined it.
Yeah, well, regardless who coined it. Yeah, I mean, as a player, he may not be available in all leagues. I mean, he's around like the 56% to 60% range right now and owned in all leagues. But if he is out there, definitely someone you want to grab and stash onto your roster. Obviously, Bijan there, and we all thought Bijan was going to be focused, even though the Falcons came out and said that early in the year that Algier would still be a part of this offense. We just thought that was a bunch of malarkey because you wasted a top 10 draft pick on Bijan. Why would you not just feature him the most? Obviously, they don't want to run him into the ground since they're not Super Bowl ready at this point in time, especially with their quarterback play and Ritter, who is just atrocious.
Desmond Mitter.
Yeah, just not a good quarterback, and I don't know why they kept with him, but I mean, they threw the ball 16 times. So
it's crazy.
And I think one of the passes was to himself, but
it was.
He had a higher PPR score than Drake London did because of that. Because of that.
That is so sad.
Isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah, that's sad. I mean, actually, Tyler, he out-carried Bijan. He had 16 carries, 75 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then also, he was involved a little bit in the pass game, not as much as Bijan, but he had 3 targets, 3 receptions for 19 yards. I mean, he led the team in rushing, and he led the team in total yards as well. So, I mean, again, I don't think that's going to be a weak occurrence. But like we mentioned beforehand, if Bijan goes down, like if you're the Bijan owner and Tyler Alligator is out there, you go spend a lot of money to get Alligator as the handcuff, because if not, you're me begging if Bijan goes down and someone else is going to be holding him there, and they're going to be wanting to trade you or whatever it might be. Just go get him at all costs if you're the Bijan owner,
or if you just need an RB, a flex guy. Algier is going to put on that value.
I don't think, but the thing is, I don't think he's going to carry that much value continue on through the year. I think he's going to get flexed out. It's going to be slowly, but I think
I don't know. They seem to only want to run the ball. Like, I mean, that that just seems to be their game plan.
No, I agree with you, but I don't know if I feel comfortable. Would you rather play like week 2? Would you rather play Puka or Tyler the Alligator?
I guess it just depends on, like if you needed an RB2 really bad, you can only play Alligator.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if in your flex spot, So,
yeah. Well, all right. Yeah. Well. All right. Next guy. We got Zay Jones. Before the season started, there was some talk that Zay was going to be the guy that was going to be in 2 wide receiver sets over Kirk, and it was really hard to like fully believe that until you saw it, and then week 1 happened. And it was Zay Jones, he was the guy in 2 wide receiver sets. So now we just like have to believe it. What they said was true. And he had like when you have a guy with a 20% target share in a Trevor Lawrence led offense, he's a guy you'd probably want on your team. And I would say right now he's a guy you can start in your wide receiver 3 or flex spot. Yeah, I mean, I'd feel very comfortable with that. And he's gonna have his up and down weeks. But I would be very happy to have the wide receiver 2 for Trevor Lawrence. You don't have to go ahead. You don't have to blow a whole lot of money. I don't think. I mean, some people will target him, but you don't have to go crazy. I wouldn't use like a priority ad on the waiver or anything, but I would. You could spend a little bit in Fab and get him.
I also talked a lot about him this offseason, so you're welcome if you played him. So, going to give you some more alpha here on how to win your leagues. This guy has one of the best names in the NFL, Rashid Shaheed, but formerly known as Shaheed, because he makes insane plays. He's always streaking down the field for like a 50-yard catch. He did it a lot last year, and they're looking to start him early and often this year. I think he was third in target share on his team, just behind Michael Thomas and Chris Olave. Not really a surprise that those are the top two guys, but he's definitely solidified himself in that offense. We saw him have a couple trick plays out of the backfield, which I always love for receivers. Maybe they try and find a little Deebo Samuel type role for him. I can't believe I still saw Taysom Hill this year, but hopefully the success of Shaheed kind of fades Taysom a little bit as the season goes on, and he could play a similar role and put up similar production from Taysom Hill's past years, because that would be great. He was kind of a fantasy star. So pretty big on Shaheed this year, and excited to see what the Saints have in store for him. I will say, as a caveat, sorry to cut you off there, Alex, but
no, you're good.
I'm more confident until Kamara gets back. Probably won't play him the first week Kamara's back, just to test out the water. So tread lightly.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have Shaheed's a very good ad, and I think really deep leads. When you have like you're starting 3 wide receivers and a flex, and went running back heavy, Shaheed. But like again, every one of these is like very roster dependent on how much you should spend on them.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously caught 2 deep balls, but he had the 4th highest points per route behind only Tyreek, Jacoby Myers, and Brandon Ayuk, who absolutely feasted this week. So
Derek Carr's ADOT's going to average pretty high with guys like Shaheed and Olave on the offense.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, this last guy really just pains me to bring up, but Jordan Love here, just we don't need to go over
daddy.
We don't need to go over what happened in that game, but yeah, I mean, you pretty much saw no fight from the Bears, but Jordan Love looked all right. I mean, 15 for 27, 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 23 fantasy points. All that without Christian Watson, who's probably going to be back this week or next from that hamstring injury. And I think Jordan Love's a guy, if you had Rodgers as your starter, or one of these kind of like lower end guys, maybe you had a Daniel Jones or a Jared Goff, a guy who didn't put up a great week and you're kind of feeling iffy about him. I think Jordan Love, he's only like 16% owned in ESPN leagues, has a couple of stronger defenses here coming up in Atlanta, New Orleans, and Detroit, but I still think he's a guy who's been, at least for week 1, showing that he's capable of putting up a good game or two. So if you're looking for a replacement at QB or just a little bit extra insurance, I think he's a guy probably at the top of the list here.
I know it's just week 1 and he's only he started 2 games, but does it pain you as a Bears fan that the Packers just seamlessly hit on quarterbacks year after year?
I'm not ready to anoint him quite yet as a Hall of Famer, but I think he'll be all right. I don't think he's going to be a Rodgers or even a Brett Favre level career, but
yeah,
it's clearly going to put up some fight.
Yeah.
All right, that was our last one, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, that'll do it for our first waiver wire episode of the year. Very important, those top guys we mentioned. I would definitely try to go out and get some of them. But thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe. Helps out the channel a lot, and we will see you next time.